It was a perfectly ordinary Tuesday when my life changed forever. I was reviewing our department's quarterly projections when Jackson Pierce strolled into my office without knocking. Jackson, our COO, had mastered the art of making every entrance feel like an announcement. "Olivia," he said, dropping a manila folder on my desk. "We need to discuss your future with Meridian Technologies." I looked up from my screen, maintaining the composed expression I'd perfected over 8 years at the company. Jackson didn't sit. He never did during these conversations. Instead, he loomed over my desk, his expensive cologne filling the small space of my office. "The executive team has been evaluating our organizational structure," he continued, not waiting for my response. "We're pivoting toward a more aggressive growth strategy, and frankly, we need someone with more presence in your position." "You're firing me?" I asked, my voice steady despite the shock rippling through me. Jackson's mouth twitched into something between a smirk and a grimace. "Let's call it a strategic personnel adjustment. Your approach is too cautious, too by the book. Meridian needs disruptors, not administrators." The irony wasn't lost on me. My department had just delivered our third consecutive quarter of record growth, exceeding targets by 22%, while Jackson's pet projects hemorrhaged money. "I see," I said quietly. "May I ask why this is happening now, especially after our recent performance?" He sighed dramatically, as if I were a child failing to understand a simple concept. "Performance metrics aren't everything, Olivia. Leadership requires vision, assertiveness, someone who commands attention when they walk into a room." His gaze flicked dismissively over my simple blazer and practical heels. "Some qualities can't be learned from spreadsheets." There it was, the real reason wrapped in corporate doublespeak. I wasn't loud enough, didn't demand enough attention, didn't fit his image of what leadership looked like. Never mind that my team had the highest retention rate in the company, or that our client satisfaction scores were unmatched. "I understand," I replied, folding my hands on my desk. "When is my last day?" My calm response visibly unsettled him. He expected tears, perhaps, or angry protestations. "Effective immediately. HR will email you the severance details. I'll need your badge and laptop before you leave the building." I nodded, standing to extend my hand. "Thank you for the opportunity, Jackson." He hesitated before accepting my handshake, clearly thrown by my composure. "Good luck with whatever comes next," he said. Already turning toward the door, the matter settled in his mind. As the door closed behind him, I sank back into my chair and glanced at the small photograph on my desk. My grandmother Sarah, standing proudly outside the original Meridian Technologies building she had founded 30 years ago. I traced my finger along the simple silver frame. "Perfect timing, Grandma," I whispered to the empty room. "Just like you planned." What Jackson didn't know, what no one at Meridian knew, was that 3 weeks ago, on my 35th birthday, I had received an unexpected inheritance. A sealed envelope delivered by my grandmother's longtime attorney contained documents that changed everything. I began packing my personal items into a small box, just my photo, a jade plant my team had given me last Christmas, and a few notebooks. I left the company awards behind. They weren't mine anymore. The office was unusually quiet as I walked out, though I could feel the weight of stares following me. A few colleagues gave sympathetic nods, others studiously focused on their screens. No one said anything. Bad news travels fast, and association with the fallen can be dangerous in corporate America. As I pushed through the glass doors into the crisp autumn air, I felt strangely light. I placed my box in the trunk of my car, slid into the driver's seat, and pulled out my phone. I sent a simple text to Miss Warner, my grandmother's attorney. "It's time." Her response came almost immediately. "Board meeting can be scheduled for Monday, 9 a.m. I drove home with the windows down, the cool breeze washing away 8 years of compromise, of swallowed suggestions, of watching less qualified men take credit for my ideas. Jackson thought he had eliminated a problem. In reality, he had just activated a solution my grandmother had engineered years ago. 3 weeks earlier, I had sat in Eleanor Warner's wood-paneled office, staring at the envelope she had placed before me. "Your grandmother was very specific," she explained. "This was to be opened on your 35th birthday. not a day sooner or later. The envelope contained 2 documents, a handwritten letter and a legal certificate with official seals. I read the letter first, my heart pounding as my grandmother's familiar handwriting filled my vision. "My dearest Olivia," it began, "if you're reading this, you've reached your 35th birthday, and I've been gone for some time. I've watched you grow into a brilliant, compassionate woman who works twice as hard for half the recognition. I've seen you build others up while staying in the shadows yourself. Your humility makes you beautiful, but in business, it can also make you invisible. When I founded Meridian, I knew that someday the wrong people might take control. People who mistake volume for vision and aggression for leadership. I built safeguards into the company's structure, keeping the most important piece hidden until it was needed. That piece is you, my darling girl. Enclosed, you'll find documentation confirming your ownership of 78% of Meridian Technologies voting shares. I placed them in an irrevocable trust when you joined the company, with instructions that control would transfer to you on your 35th birthday. Use this power wisely. Not for revenge, but for restoration. Not to tear down, but to rebuild what matters. I always knew you were the future of Meridian. Now everyone else will know it too." The legal document confirmed everything. Through a complex series of trusts and holdings, I now controlled over 3/4 of the company's voting shares. My grandmother had structured it brilliantly, concealing the true ownership through a network of shell companies and blind trusts that all led back to me. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation. Miss Warner and I worked methodically, gathering evidence of Jackson's mismanagement, the turnover rates, the failed initiatives, the harassment complaints that had been buried, and the financial projections that had been manipulated to hide his failures. By Monday morning, I was ready. I chose a charcoal gray suit I'd never worn to the office, paired with the pearl earrings my grandmother had left me. This wasn't about vengeance, it was about reclamation. The security guard at Meridian's front desk did a double take when I approached, my visitor badge already prepared by Miss Warner. "Miss Chen," I thought. We were told. "Just here for a meeting, Carl," I said with a smile. "Is the board already gathered?" "Yes, ma'am. Boardroom A, 10th floor." The elevator ride was silent except for the soft classical music piped through hidden speakers. Miss Warner stood beside me, calm and professional in her tailored navy suit, a leather portfolio tucked under her arm. "Ready?" she asked as the doors opened to reveal the executive floor. I nodded. More than ready. We could hear Jackson's voice through the boardroom doors, his confident tone carrying as he presented what sounded like a restructuring plan. Perfect timing. I pushed open the heavy wooden doors without knocking. 12 heads turned simultaneously, expressions ranging from surprise to confusion to outright alarm. Jackson froze mid-sentence, his presentation slide showing a reorganization chart with his name at the top. "Olivia," he recovered quickly, his voice sharp with irritation. "This is a closed board meeting. If you need to discuss your severance package—" "That won't be necessary, Jackson," I interrupted, my voice clear and steady as I took a seat at the head of the table, the chair that had been empty since my grandmother's retirement. "I'm not here about my severance." The board members exchanged glances. Fiona Matthews, the longest-serving director, leaned forward. "Miss Chen, while we appreciate your contributions to Meridian, Mr. Pierce is correct. This meeting is for board members and executive leadership only." "I'm aware of the protocol, Miss Matthews," I replied, nodding to Miss Warner, who began distributing folders to each board member, "which is precisely why I'm here." Jackson's face flushed as he flipped open the folder. "What is this supposed to be?" "Documentation of my majority shareholder status," I explained calmly. "As you can see, I control 78% of Meridian Technologies' voting shares, transferred to me through a trust established by Sarah Chen, the founder and original CEO of this company." The silence that followed was absolute. Board members scrutinized the documents, some with widening eyes, others with tightening jaws. Jackson stood frozen, his presentation forgotten behind him. "This can't be legal," he finally sputtered. "The company's ownership structure is public record. This would have been disclosed." "Not necessarily," Miss Warner interjected smoothly. Miss Chen's grandmother utilized a perfectly legal structure of tiered holdings and proxy entities. The shares were always there, just distributed in a way that obscured the ultimate beneficial owner until the trust terms activated. Fiona Matthews adjusted her glasses, studying the documents carefully. "These appear to be in order," she confirmed, her voice betraying a hint of admiration. Sarah always was 3 steps ahead of everyone else. I opened my own folder and removed a single sheet of paper. "As majority shareholder, I'm calling for an immediate vote on 2 items. First, the removal of Jackson Pierce as Chief Operating Officer, effective immediately. Second, a comprehensive audit of executive decision-making over the past 3 years." Jackson slammed his palm on the table. "This is absurd! A vendetta because you couldn't handle being let go? The board won't—" "The board doesn't need to approve," Miss Warner corrected. "Miss Chen's shares constitute a controlling majority. Her vote alone is sufficient." I turned to face Jackson directly. "This isn't personal, Jackson. It's business. Under your leadership, employee turnover has increased by 64%. 3 sexual harassment claims have been settled quietly, and your flagship expansion initiative is projected to lose $12 million this quarter alone." I slid the performance reports across the table. Meridian deserves better leadership. 2 hours later, I stood in what had been Jackson's office, now empty save for the standard furniture. His personal items had been boxed up by security while he was escorted from the building, shouting about lawsuits and retribution. I didn't take the office. Instead, I walked to the small conference room where my grandmother had always preferred to work, with its view of the city park and natural light that filled the space. This would be my base while I rebuilt what had been broken. Over the next month, I made changes, not with dramatic firings or splashy reorganizations, but with careful, deliberate steps. I promoted Rachel from marketing to lead the department after years of her ideas being appropriated by her former boss. I brought back Devin from engineering, who had left after being passed over repeatedly despite his innovations. I established an anonymous reporting system for workplace concerns that reported directly to an independent third party. Most importantly, I listened. I met with teams at all levels, from the maintenance staff to senior directors. I asked what worked, what didn't, and what they would change if they could. Then I acted on what I heard. 6 months after what employees now jokingly called the boardroom revolution, I sat in my office, still the converted conference room, now personalized with plants and a few carefully chosen photographs, including my grandmother's portrait on the wall, reviewing our quarterly results. Employee retention was up 37%. Innovation submissions had tripled. Our stock price had stabilized after an initial dip and was now climbing steadily as the market recognized our strengthened foundation. A knock at my door interrupted my review. It was Amara, a junior analyst who had joined us just 2 months ago. "Miss Chen, the team wanted me to deliver this personally." She handed me a small wrapped package. Inside was a simple brass nameplate for my desk. It read, "Olivia Chen, CEO and Guardian of the Legacy." I ran my fingers over the engraved letters, smiling at the sentiment. "Thank you," I said, "but I'm just the caretaker here. We're all guardians of what makes this company special." Amara nodded. "That's what makes you different from him," she said simply before turning to leave. Later that evening, as the office emptied and the city lights began to twinkle outside my window, I took out my grandmother's photograph again. Her wise eyes seemed to sparkle with approval. "You were right, Grandma," I whispered. "It wasn't about having the loudest voice in the room. It was about having the clearest vision." I placed the photo back on my desk, next to the new nameplate. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. New opportunities to reshape the company in the image my grandmother had always intended, not built on fear and domination, but on innovation, respect, and the quiet strength that comes from knowing your own worth. Jackson never knew what hit him, but then again, the most powerful forces often work in silence.